After over a week of hearing from the prosecution, the defense team began presenting its case, trying to convince the jury Robert Neulander did not kill his wife Leslie nearly a decade ago. Neulander arrived at the courtroom this morning, as he has throughout the trial, with his family and defense team beside him, hugging his son Ari before heading inside the courtroom. The difference this week is that some of his family members, including his daughter Jenna, who made the 911 call, are expected to testify. While laying out their case, the prosecution called a series of doctors and forensic experts trying to convince the jury that Leslie's injuries are not consistent with a fall in the shower, and that the blood splatter and DNA evidence in the bedroom proves she was not in the shower when she died. The defense team is responding now with their own expert witnesses, giving a different interpretation of the evidence at the crime scene, as well as testimony from members of the Neulander family to convince the jury Neulander had no motive to kill his wife. We have team coverage tonight of the trial. Mary Keeler is breaking down testimony from Leslie Neulander's sister, and our Connor White is getting outside perspective from a legal expert about what type of impact today's testimony could have on the jury. Our coverage begins with Mary Keeler live at the Onondaga County Courthouse tonight. Mary?
Matt, Leslie Neulander's sister, Joanne London, was the first witness to take the stand for the defense today. She testified on Robert Neulander's for the defense in Robert Neulander's first murder trial in 2015, and today she did more of the same thing. This video you're seeing is Joanne London walking into court this morning, Leslie Neulander's sister again, who says they had a very close relationship, often talking on the phone every single day, sometimes even twice, she says. London says she saw Leslie and Robert Neulander as a strong team in their marriage and wasn't aware of any physical altercations between the two of them, but confirming she knew about the couple's conversations about a trial separation. Joanne saying she heard about the prosecution's new piece of evidence, a piece of Leslie Neulander's head, or what the prosecution says is a piece of her head, on the couple's bedroom headboard. She said as she was on the stand, she's not sure if that's exactly what it is. And just as we expected, Matt, today on the stand, Joanne London talking about the vertigo problems her sister suffered from, says that is something that she and even their aunt suffer from. She says she was talking about that. That's a tactic we were expecting to see from the defense as they continue their case. But late this afternoon, we also heard from two family friends, Philip Miller and John Martin, who is Philip Miller's brother-in-law. They saw the Neulanders, both Leslie and Robert, for a Jewish New Year dinner the night before Leslie Neulander's death. This, of course, just the first full day of the defense presenting their case to the jury. That continues tomorrow.
Matt, board members got passionate yesterday when talking about the violence at schools. But when I tried to speak with some of these board members yesterday as well as today, I was directed on who I could speak with by the superintendent's office, even though they're elected officials. Last night, the school board discussed the recent stabbing of another student. Board members spoke their opinion and expressed their frustration.
What better could we do than to have students that not only see an issue, but come to us with their own resolution?
When I asked to speak to one of them after the meeting regarding the violence, I was told by a district spokesperson I can only speak to the president. Syracuse City School District runs on a system where the board president is the speaker for the board, which isn't unusual, says Van White, who was the longest-serving school board president in Rochester.
If you have too many voices, sometimes that can cause distraction.
However, he says he's never censored the voices of the elected board members.
I never discouraged, didn't have to, didn't need to, my colleagues speaking up to the community or to the media, because that's how they learn what we're thinking. And that's how, quite frankly, we learn what they're thinking.
When I emailed one of the board members today for more questions, I was directed to the superintendent's office and contacted by a spokesperson from the district immediately after, something White said didn't happen in his district.
It was not unusual during my tenure as president for board members to speak to the media, to speak to constituents directly, to speak to reporters about concerns, particularly something like violence that affects us all.
White says it's ironic if a public educational institution would not hold up the First Amendment of the Constitution.
It is important that they exercise the right to vocalize what's going on up here and what's going on in their heart.
White says when a board member or superintendent is asked to speak on these issues, there should be a mutual respect in letting them talk to the community members and media.
there are things that superintendents do tend to speak to better because they are the day-to-day operational people. But when it comes to, for example, violence in the community, my God, that is an issue that anyone could and should speak to, I would think.
Now, tonight, I asked the district office to send me over their policy. Once again, Matt, that is tonight, stating that I have to go through a district spokesperson in order to reach out to a board member. I have yet to hear back from them.
You could see marijuana dispensaries open by the end of this year, selling legal weed to smoke or eat in the form of gummies. And when those retail shops open, many of the owners will be people who found themselves in legal trouble over marijuana in the past. State officials will reserve the first 100 or more retail licenses to sell marijuana in our state for people who've been convicted of marijuana-related offenses or their relatives. The governor wants $200 million in this year's state budget to support the new businesses, even paying for renovating storefronts to house them. CBS 5's Samantha Croston is in the studio with new information right now. Sam.
While marijuana advocates are pleased with the move and feel it will improve social equity, others have safety concerns.
Mike Golden and Byron Cage, both members of the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association, are one step closer to a longtime goal of theirs.
Together, we're working to open a consumption lounge. So it would be music venue, consumption on site, like a sports bar, but no alcohol, just cannabis products.
Golden, who has been arrested multiple times on weed-related charges, could be among the first to get a license.
Applaud the state on what they're trying to do is trying to, ensure that, the people most affected by the war on drugs have a place or some sort of segue into the legal market.
For Golden and Cage, opening a marijuana bar isn't their only objective. It's also about decriminalizing weed and removing the negative stereotypes that have been tied to the drug for decades.
We as minorities as well have, been over-stigmatized and arrested at a 4-to-1 ratio for marijuana charges.
Others, like Oneida County Sheriff Robert Neulander, disagree with the priority system.
Why are we giving preference to someone who has been convicted of something? I get it, it's marijuana, but those convictions came about during a time when marijuana was illegal to possess.
He has safety concerns about legalized marijuana, among them car accidents involving THC.
We do not have any roadside technology for law enforcement to detect the level of THC in a person's body.
Retail marijuana is projected by New York State to be a $1 billion industry.